Rachel Carlino-Dangora is the CEO and founder of Make Peace with Organizing. She resides in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and Bristol, New Hampshire, with her husband, two children, and dog, Piper Blush. As a working mom, Rachel understands the importance of staying organized in every facet of life. Her friends dubbed her the organizing queen many years ago due to her ability to juggle family and the demands of a career. After practicing law for 8 years, she realized her passion was helping busy people create a more organized life so she can focus on what matters, like building a business or spending time enjoying family and friends. Sharing this passion became her ambition, and Make Peace with Organizing was created with the mission to help others reduce day to day stress, increase productivity, and improve quality of life. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yay. I love the last line when I was reading it. Help other reduce day-to-day stress. Welcome to my life. Take all my stress away. I'm
Help.
ready for you.
SOS.
That's what we do. And after an organizing session, I was a lawyer by trade before, and seeing my clients' faces and just how comfortable and peaceful they are, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I actually want to start with that tidbit a little bit. So I think that there's a lot of psychology behind kind of decluttering and organizing. And so I wanted to start with kind of like, do you know the psychology behind it? How does it impact our life in kind of like a deeper way? Maybe like, is this why you got into it? Is there kind of like something that triggered this jump into organizing? Did it make such an impact on your own life?
Yeah. So for me, I feel like with all professional organizers, we are all organized when we're younger. And I've had this conversation, a lot of people, organizing isn't really taught at school. It's something that, if your parents are organized, you kind of learn it. So when I was younger, my parents were very organized. So I've always been an organized person. I went into the law because all of my family were lawyers, and it just seemed like the right thing to do. But I did go through a tough divorce. And after that, I thought to myself, what am I really passionate about? And I had always liked organizing, and I always thought that I would have been a good therapist also, but I went into law. So that was always in my mind. So I started doing the due diligence on what it was to be a professional organizer. And I did find, as you said, kind of the correlation, because a lot of people, especially in this age, are going through a lot of stress, right? It's like, it's very different from when you're younger. And now you have a family, you have, kids and dogs and things, a lot more things to do. And so there's just so much added stress onto it. And also I'll mention, when people are downsizing, that's another thing. People get very stressed over that because they're used to living in a home, and now they're going to like assisted living or senior living facilities. So all those emotions, I thought that I could really help with that. And again, I kind of had that like kind of therapist mindset, even though I never went to school to become a therapist, but I did all of my due diligence. And I found that once you get rid of all of that clutter in your mind and in your space, it just creates an environment where you can really thrive, whether it be, being present with your family. A lot of people, if things aren't in their place, it's very hard for them to be present and be with their children and their family. And then for business, I've been in a lot of homes where there's just stuff all over the person's desk. And to someone who's organized, it doesn't seem like a big deal, like, oh, I can clean that off. But someone who doesn't, it's not one of their traits, it's hard. It's like, I'll just leave it there. But once they declutter it and it's organized and they know where their stapler is and their pen, it makes it so much more productive, and their businesses, their lives are just so much more fulfilling, and they want to wake up every single day. So I think it was that combo of like kind of therapy, me maybe, going through the divorce and thinking about what I really wanted. And I absolutely love what I do now. I'm still licensed attorney, but I would never go back to law. It's just truly, it's an amazing change. And at first I had one client and I said, let me just see how it goes. And here we're up to 650 clients in 5.5+ years now. So
that is amazing.
It's been an amazing, amazing journey.
Yeah, and that speaks to just how much people need this. And I think there's such a shift into the idea of like minimalism. Amanda and I always talk about how we're like, let's get rid of all this shit. Like
Yes,
every
there's so
time I
much
look in my
junk.
closet and like drawers, I'm just like purging lately. And it feels
Mhm.
so good, like inside feels good when the outside feels good.
Yeah, and you saying that brings up a good point where maintenance is so key. You can declutter and make something look pretty, but if you don't maintain it, it goes back to that. So I always say, every month or so, go back to that space, and just even if you did it for 20 minutes. We actually offer maintenance, so a lot of our clients are on a maintenance program, and we go like once
That's
a quarter,
awesome.
twice a year, just to make sure those systems are working, because there's changes in lives, kids go to school, people move, so maybe there needs to be a tweak in the system.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm.
Okay, so I want to kind of get into what it looks like in your day-to-day life. I want you to normalize being a hot mess because when I think about hiring someone to come into my house, I am like, oh my God, no, I have a curtain over all of this stuff because it's so embarrassing. Like I always say my husband's like a little bit of a hoarder, and he totally is. We have like places in my house that I can't even look because I get so mad. So I
Yeah.
want you to first of all normalize being a hot mess. And then I want you to kind of talk about when you walk into a house, what do you typically see? Is it only me that has three closets and three different rooms filled with clothes from 2014, or am I in this boat with other people?
You are in the boat with majority of people. One point I'll mention is pretty interesting, is that a lot of people come to me and say, my office, like I work at a brick and mortar, my office is so organized, but my home isn't organized. And it's like, why does that happen? It just doesn't, it doesn't make sense. But I just think after a day of working, it's kind of the last thing you want to do is organize your home. You really just want to organize the space you're in, although I know a lot of home offices need some help, but it's just a comment that I've heard. So yes, a lot of people are definitely in a hot mess. And even as an organizer, sometimes, I mean, my son is in 4 different basketball teams. It's a lot, just because I'm an organizer doesn't mean everything at every second, because we have to live life as well. I had a client once say, can you color coordinate all the Legos? And
Oh.
I knew her son was coming home like 4 hours later. And I said, please don't make, I don't want
You're
to,
like,
I
let's
knew
not
what was
focus on
going to
this.
happen.
Yeah.
And he came home with 2 friends. I don't have to say anything more. Clearly he pivoted where I was, and that was that. So I feel like with organizing, you really need to look at it as, yes, you want an organized space, but you also want to be able to live in it as well. So I think a lot of it is, as you said, kind of goes back to the psychological part of it. It's very hard to maintain a space, but I feel like once you're given, once you actually talk about it and say, well, this pen, I want it to be over here. And then we say, well, do you use this pen downstairs? Oh, I do use it downstairs. So now we're not going up and down the stairs, right? So there's a lot of like coaching when it goes along with it. But yes, a
Okay.
lot of people are a hot mess, and that's where we come in. And a hot mess to me is overworked parents. It could be someone who's going through a divorce, someone who's going through a death in the family, or someone who is, transitioning, whether it be into a different house, they're a young couple, they're having a child. Um, changes are about to happen, or it's somebody who's older and who's going to be transitioning into, downsizing into a smaller home, or maybe going into a senior living facility. So there's a lot of emotions that come with all of that. But the one thing I'll say is that as a professional organizer, me and my team, we are all compassionate, understanding, and non-judgmental. And the
Mhm.
judgmental part, Caitlin, is what you had said, like you have all these closets and you kind of like almost like put a bag over it, you don't want
Yeah.
to look at it. And I always say to people, I'd love to be able just to see a picture of the space. And so many people say, well, I'm embarrassed of it. And I always say, the only way I can help is if I see it. And I want to see how you live, because it's almost like, cleaning before the cleaners come.
Yes, which I
That's
totally
Right?
so
do.
true. Same.
I want to be able to see how you live, because then I can really start figuring out, okay, this is usually here. Why is this here? And kind of have those conversations and figure out, should it be here or should it be somewhere else? And really helping that person on their in the day-to-day life. So when they wake up, they have everything they need and they know where it is. So they're not running around and all of a sudden it's like 8:30 and they've done like a full day, right? We want to make it as easy as possible. So when I walk into a home, yeah, the first thing, if I see like I went into a space a couple of weeks ago and I opened the door to the room and everything kind of came tumbling down, right? Because a lot of areas become a dumping ground, right? We don't have time for it. It could be a room, it could be a basement. Some people just throw stuff down there because they don't want to see it, right? If you don't have a wash, hopefully they don't have a washer dryer down there, because then it makes it harder. But if you don't,
you just have to go down with blinders on.
With blinders on, okay.
Yes.
And that's hard. So the first thing, I look at it and I kind of compartmentalize it. I'm like, okay, there's a lot of stuff here. And then I think about, is that person going through anything in particular? So I think about the kind of the psychological part of it, right? And sometimes what clients will do is they'll show me all different areas, like spaces, and say, well, where should we start? So I kind of look at all the spaces and I don't go for the space that's very filled, but kind of like that medium space. And I'm like, let's just go in and let's start looking at it, and the conversations again are very, very, very key. Really getting to understand the client's day-to-day life is so important to be able to organize somebody. So that's kind of how I kind of start getting into the actual organizing of someone's home business. And we also do schools as well. So we do have an array of different areas that we organize.
That's awesome. Amazing. I feel like my mom's a school teacher and she would love that at the end of the year, helping her go through everything.
Yeah, having all the books in order and all of the supplies. And it's helpful because then you know exactly what you need. Yeah. Before it's like everything's kind of all over the place. It's a little bit harder, and it does save money in the long run as well.
Yeah.
I love what you were saying about understanding people or your clients' everyday life. So you're really helping them, you're organizing, but you're really helping them create those systems. So it's like their day is less chaotic. They're starting the day without having to be so flustered, which seems so just common sense, but for some reason it's such a hard thing to just do on your own. Are there any tips that you could share with the listeners to maybe have them start to create those systems on their own, some of the questions that you ask your clients?
Yeah. So once, the first part is decluttering, as we mentioned, and decluttering is basically deciding what's going to stay, go, and be donated. Once we've decluttered the space, then we start talking about systems. So systems, for example, say we're in a kitchen, and you know those deep cabinets where everything gets stuck back there. To have an organizer that is deep but has a handle on it so you can pull it out would be so helpful, because then the stuff isn't getting stuck back there, and now you have stuff expired from 4 years ago. I was at a client's last week and we saw something from 4 years ago, and I'm like, so because you need to have it contained, so when you pull it out, you keep seeing it, and then eventually you maybe every couple of months be like, let me go through and let me do the expiration date. So in the kitchen, there's so many spots in the kitchen where things can get really stuck in the back. So I always say to have some sort of containment for stuff is really, really, really helpful for that. The other thing I'll say, when you're looking to get organizers, we usually get organizers from the Container Store. Everyone loves going into the Container Store. So much fun. I love going in there. They know my name by now. It's like my second home. It truly is. Whenever I'm there, I'll put something on social media and be like, hey, here I am. And it's just, I love it. I love it. Not everyone does, right? Sometimes it's overwhelming for some, but for me, it's great. And so We get products at like Container Store and Amazon, but I'll say is if you're thinking about going to get an organizer and say you're going to go to the Container Store, the one thing I'll mention is make sure you measure the space. I can't tell you how many times I'll go to clients' homes, and I always say don't buy organizers because the stuff you have you might not want. So we really have to think about what's going to go into that container, right? But if you're going to do it on your own, make sure you measure the space, the depth, the height, especially drawers with height. These containers sometimes, the height is like say 2 inches, and the container, it says 2 inches, but it actually might be just a little bit more, and then the drawer won't close. So you really want to give it a little bit of a wiggle room there. So that's one suggestion I have for any space, just to make sure you measure it, because the amount of times you'll have to go back and forth trying to figure out what fits, that could stress you out. Just that alone,
Definitely. Okay, I'm gonna bounce around a little bit. Okay, we had a stylist on the other week, and it was such a fun conversation. And we brought up to her, we were like, so how do we organize our closet? And she was like, that is not for me, that is for a specialist. And that's what bridged this conversation for me and Amanda. We were like, we need a specialist to talk about our closets. So I want to talk about closets. What do you think is the best way to organize? Like by color or season? Should we have all of our clothes out all of the time? What do you typically recommend?
So the first thing is going to be, how big is your closet? That's the thing. I mean, if someone has a walk-in closet, they'll probably have space to be able to have summer and winter. If you do have a small closet, then you'll have to, switch out. And so usually what I say is let's have that season, in the closet, and then maybe upstairs if you have a closet, and then you switch it. So that's more of like a smaller closet. And even if it's a small closet, say you have your winter stuff there, I like doing it by type of clothing. So what I'll do is I'll have like sweaters in one section, I'll have sweatshirts in another, and then in each section, if you want to get to this point as an organizer, I like doing this. It takes time. I love color coordinating. So I love color coordinating the actual sections. And then I have like this is like right here, this is my make peace shirt here. So I have all of my make peace shirts in one section. And then I have a section of like, going to like my son's basketball game. And then I have, if I'm going to a meeting section. So I have those specific sections for myself. So thinking about, what do you wear? I know since COVID, we've kind of changed, we're kind of in that comfy kind of probably more sweatshirts than anything else.
Yeah.
But think about kind of what sections would you like to have? And it's so much easier, again, waking up in the morning, knowing where everything is, knowing, okay, I'm going to grab my sweatshirt. Oh, today I'm going to a meeting. This is my meeting stuff, having it there. And again, if you wanted to get to that next level of color coordinating it does take time, but I love doing that because then I can match it with like my pants or my skirt that I'm wearing, right? So that can make it a little bit easier. But that would be my first suggestion with closets. And then the other thing is, you said you might have things from like, I don't know, like 2004, right? So you just have to have those conversations. But as my daughter says, bell bottoms are back now, right? And I was going to get rid of my bell bottoms.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna, and I don't know if my daughter will wear them because they might be a little too much for her, but I have these bell bottoms. Maybe I'm dating myself now, but they have like a heart sewn into it at the bottom.
Ooh.
And I'm like, for Valentine's Day, I used to wear
yes.
when I was younger, and bell bottoms. So,
I feel like that's the hard thing, right?
Yeah,
it's like that conversation that you have with yourself. You're like, well, with that one time, just in case, and then you throw it away, and then 2 years later, bell bottoms come back, and you're like, no.
Yeah,
I know, exactly. Yeah, so it is a hard conversation, but a lot of times it's like, well, if you haven't worn it for a year or two, maybe you can get rid of it. But also another thing that's very important is keepsakes. Keepsakes is very important, and for me personally, I like getting, my husband gives me cards all the time. Like once a month, he'll put a card like in a random spot in the house. That's my keepsake. But everyone has their own keepsakes, but some people have keepsakes and they're clothes, right? From when they were younger, but they have them in their closet. why not find a different area of the home for the keepsakes in a nice container? So when you want to visit those, you can, because they do, because a lot of times I see that they take up a lot of space in the closet, and some of them are really bulky, maybe like a sweatshirt from college that maybe doesn't fit them anymore, or they just want to keep it, but they wouldn't wear it. Right. So I think that is very, very, very important as well when you're in a closet organizing.
Yeah, I think that that's huge. And one of my questions, I think, definitely pertains to this. I wanted to know, how do you stay kind when people like refuse to ditch their crap? Like, I'm gonna totally throw my husband under the bus, like I always do. I love him dearly, but he's just easy. This is how we live. We like bicker back and forth. So don't worry. We are a good relationship. This is just the way we are. But he has like high school trophies that he is obsessed with, and they're in our attic. So at least I don't see them. But I'm like, what the hell are we doing with these? Like, good for you, babe. You were the MVP, and I'm so proud of you. 20 years ago, I'm like, you are a rock star. But like, how do I stay kind and also like push him a little bit into getting rid of just like that stuff?
Yeah, a lot of times it takes time. So when we have one session, two sessions, sometimes someone's not ready to get rid of something, right? And I always say a first, a second, a third, and maybe even a fourth look is needed. Then
Okay.
somebody says, okay, you know what? I'm ready to part with this. Not trophies, but other things you could potentially donate. I'm very big into donating. We donate to local charities all the time. So that's one way that we stay kind, and we say, you know, maybe someone less fortunate, right, would want this item, especially in the winter. If it's like coats, someone's cold, it would be really nice to be able to pass it along. For the trophies, one suggestion that I would have is, yeah, I'm sure they're taking up a lot of space, the big trophies, right? And again, it's not an eyesore for you because it's up in your attic. So I thought you were going to say it was in your bedroom. I was going to be
Oh
like,
my God, no, he does have
maybe I
some
need to come
trophies on our
over.
mantle, but those are newer ones. Big softball guy.
But my suggestion would be, what about if you took pictures of all of them and put it into some sort of album? So they're not like leaving him. He can still see them. And I know it's like, sometimes it's the physical, they want to like hold on to it. But if you, maybe that's something you could do for like for our birthday or for like some sort of holiday, right? And maybe he'd be ready maybe to let go, because he would still be able to see them when he wanted to, but it wouldn't take up as much space. That's what I do a lot when it's like bigger things. I had a client who wanted to keep her kids are older. She wanted to keep 3 Barbie dream homes, but she wanted to keep them intact.
Okay.
So they're huge.
Yeah.
So they were in a closet, and she had so much stuff outside the closet. And I said, you know, could we maybe get down to 2? So we got down to 2. I came back a month later. Not ready yet. A month after that, okay, I see what you're saying. We could definitely use that space. So now she's down to 1. So sometimes it's just kind of having the conversation and saying, well, we have other stuff that could fit really nicely in here. Can we take a picture? Can we donate it? Are you ready to let it go? So there is a lot of patience to it. I'm a very, very patient person, as everyone that works for me. To be an organizer, you have to be patient. Again, you have to be compassionate. You have to understand where that person's really coming from. Like, why does your husband want all those trophies? Well, he's happy. He's happy he got those. It probably brings back some great memories, of it. So it's almost like letting go of that time of his life.
Yes.
And that can be very, very, very hard. So transforming that into a picture, or thinking somebody else might want something, and maybe they can enjoy it, can definitely help the process.
Yeah. I love that, because we like hold on to that time of our life, and he's not alone in that. I definitely do that with a few things too, but yeah, I love the idea of taking pictures too. I think that's a great strategy.
Yeah.
So you were talking about how you love to donate items, and I also am a big donator, but I will admit that I almost like I can't really decipher between like what's trash and what's donate. And then I feel like sometimes I'll donate things that are trash. So like, what do we throw away? What do we donate? Like, and how does it not stop us from like still going? Like sometimes I make a pile of stuff I'm going to donate and then it just sits in my car for like 2 months or wherever and then I'm
6
like, oh,
months.
well, maybe I'll wear these clothes actually, because it's just like sitting there and I'm like, well, I'll just hang it back up.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a loaded question, but
And where are the best places to donate? Because I feel like you hear mixed reviews of like, don't bring your place to this, or like, are those boxes in like the bins in those parking lots? Does all that stuff just sit there? Like, where are you making an impact, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I'll say is when you work with us at the end of each session, we take donations with us.
ooh,
So
Honestly, for
if
that
you-
reason
hired.
alone, like,
Yeah.
you're hired. Come on over.
yeah, you're right though. It sits in your trunk or it sits by the door to go out to the car. And I can't tell you how many times I'll come to a house and they'll be tight and I'll say, is that donations? They're like, yes, but I know you're going to take them.
Yep.
So that's an added service, for sure. Yeah, so what we do is we, like within our area in Marblehead, Massachusetts, we like to go to Lifebridge, and we go to Beverly Bootstraps. And why we like those donation centers is because they give back. They give back to the homeless in those towns. And it's just they're both really great organizations. And we know that the stuff that we give them is actually going to go to a good cause. And then as far as like what is donatable, right? If things have stains in it, it's not really donatable. You could like try to donate, like there's like, I don't really know as many, but there's places you can donate like fabric and you can reuse it. So sometimes we do some research on that. We do service all of Massachusetts and parts of New Hampshire. So it really depends on what area it is. But within this area, it's Beverly Bootstraps and Lifebridge. And then you want to see like toys, for instance. We usually take toys to like a Savers. For toys, you want to make sure they're in working condition. And electronics, all that stuff you want to make sure. So if it's been sitting up in the attic and you're like, I don't really know if this works, just plug it in just to see if it works. And if it doesn't, then obviously it's trash. But do that extra, because sometimes when we bring it to donation centers, they will plug it in and they will see if it actually works. And then I remember one time is this big TV and the client's like, oh, it works. It didn't work. So now I have this big
And then
TV.
you're like embarrassed, right? You're like,
yeah,
oh,
right,
right.
exactly. And I have my name in my card, and it is pretty embarrassing. So I'm like, let's just make sure it works. So make sure
Yeah.
that electronics, toys, make sure that all works.
Okay.
Also, you want to look at the season also, because right now is not a good time to donate Halloween stuff, because they're not going to be putting that on the floor. They won't be like, sending it to somebody. So you want to make sure it's seasonal. So I would say like September, like August, September might be good to do Halloween stuff, right? And maybe think of like Christmas stuff, but not right now, because a lot of companies won't necessarily take those. But a lot of these places will take pretty much everything. And some of them will take toiletries too, especially the ones that feed the homeless. So if you have toiletries that aren't open, so you always want not opened. So if it's food or, toothpaste, stuff like that, you want to make sure you haven't used it to be able to donate it. And the other thing too is if there's a specific place that you want to donate, you can go on their website and they're always great in saying what we take and what we don't take. So you can always go on there and double check to make sure.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because as you were saying the seasonal thing, I'm like, because I did the opposite this year with my Christmas things, I took it all out. And then as I was putting it away, I was like, oh, I didn't really like this. I'll put it in the donate bin or whatever. And then I did kind of feel a little crappy, like dropping it off after Christmas. And I'm like, well, now they're just going to either throw it away or have to hang on to it. So it's like, okay, while we're putting our Christmas things out, if you don't like something, get rid of it then. So then other people can use it for that holiday.
I did the same
I'm
thing.
telling you.
I did the same thing.
Okay, good. I'm not alone.
Exactly. And there's certain things that I have down in my basement that I'm like, it's not, I have to wait. So sometimes I have to wait on things.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it happens.
I like it. Okay. So I said 3, but it can be any amount. What are 3 things you typically see in people's houses that you typically encourage them to get rid of?
encourage them to get rid of. I think one of the big things is baby stuff from when their children were younger. Because they say, well, we'll use it for our grandchildren. And I'm not talking about like clothes, because clothes you could keep as long as, you know, they're in a place that's not like, you know, going to get mold. But I'm talking more about you know, seats and cribs,
The
because
amount of freaking cribs I have been asked if I needed, okay? Every single relative, I love them. They're so thoughtful. But everyone's like, I have a crib in my attic if you need one. And I'm like, no, I want to buy my own crib. That's like a very personal thing that you need. And yours is probably not safe anymore.
exactly, it's the safety of it all. And car
Yeah.
seats, I don't know what is, I think it was like 7 or 8 years. They have expiration dates on
Yeah.
the back of them, actually. So a lot of these I found one you know, baby item that was recalled. So you can if it's in the attic, most likely it's been there for a long time. But again, it kind of going back to your husband's trophies, it's hard because that was like, it's like pulling away at their life. You know, part of their life now is being taken away by this object. So it can be very, very, very hard to let it go. So that would probably be like the number one thing. Another thing, a lot of people have a lot of paper. Paper organizing is huge.
Yes.
And so, you know, older clientele like to have actual paper, like bills.
Mhm.
But I have found like Comcast bills from 20 years ago.
Wow.
You don't need those, right? So but it's hard because you know, certain people are used to, and they like to have paper copies of things.
Mhm.
But the amount of paper and to organize it, it takes a lot of time. So
Mhm.
that's kind of another thing. I'll say, well, you know, maybe you could have like an online portal, and if it's for older clientele, maybe their daughter or son can connect them with it, right, and help them with it. Because paper can get so out of control. I've been at homes where paper's scattered everywhere. People are missing paying their bills because of it. So that's another area that I really would like, you know, my clients to really, I really want to help them part with it. And I know that it can be hard.
Yeah.
And the
I feel like
third,
paperwork's huge. And I even think that's like a generational thing. I feel like it's a
yes.
boomer thing of having a ton of like paper bills. And for
Mhm.
me, it's like I have a ton of notepads and they're all like cute and they have like little things on them,
Right.
but I'm like, they're so cute. But I have probably 100 of them, you know, and I'm always like, I don't need any of these. And I try to recycle them. And my husband's like, what are you doing? They're great paper.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
And you
that's
said
crazy stuff.
generational, but you know, it's also, it's how you're brought up too. You know, even
Oh
today, like
yeah.
some people like to keep everything, some people are minimalist. So it's really how you were brought up. That's kind of how you think.
Mm,
Um, and let me see what else. You know, a lot of people keep things that I know that they are not never going to use again. Like a lot of people have VHSs, but they don't even have a VHS machine. So things like that, and they have CDs, and they're like, well, we'll convert them to whatever is now, you know, and like usually people won't get to that, and it takes up again a lot of space. So those are
okay.
probably the top three. I'm sure there's
Of
tons of
course.
more, but again, it's having those conversations and understanding why the person's keeping that stuff, and then just, you know, gently saying, well, are we ready to part with this, you know, and just again, those conversations are so important with the whole organizing process.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I'm really jumping all over the place here, but this is what my brain is doing today. So here we are. All
I'll
right.
follow the bouncing ball.
Thank you. So talking about moving, you had mentioned that that's kind of like one of the things that you typically can kind of walk into and help clients with. So what do you recommend as kind of the best or easiest process? Do you typically come in and say we also need movers along with organizers, like recommending like having family help you? What do you think is just like the most simple way to go about moving?
Yeah, so I have found that having a third party come in can be very helpful. So basically, I always say if someone's thinking of downsizing, start early, start like a year in advance, because it could be, 30 to 50 years of life is in that home. Think about how long it took you to get all that in there. Now you have to now look at it all and figure out where it's going to go. So I usually suggest, if you're working with a professional organizer, to, create a schedule. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once every couple of weeks. Our minimum is 3 hours. So at a 3-hour session, let's start going through things. And then the client can have homework. Like, let me ask my daughter if she wants this, or let me ask, so it's not having the family members coming in with you, but you are kind of making these piles. And the next time I come, oh, my daughter didn't want that. Are you okay donating it? Yes, I am. And that's kind of how the process goes. And I found that to be very, very, very helpful, especially when, someone say is moving from like a 4,000 square foot home and they're moving into a condo that's like, 1,000 feet, right? So you really have to, you kind of have to become a minimalist, right? When it comes to that. And then as far as, we help coordinate getting clean out crews and movers. And we have a lot of connections. So we help with the move management. So we will help hire all of them. And then my team, we actually pack. So we we declutter it, right? Then we pack, and then we unpack and organize at the new home as well.
Yeah. Amanda's like, I'm in.
I've moved so many times in my life, and this sounds like a dream process that I have never experienced.
Yeah. My husband's usually like, I'm going to rent the biggest truck and we're going to put everything in it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's so important, regardless of what stage in life you are and you're moving. Decluttering is so important, because think about what you're bringing with you. Now you're spending time packing it. You're paying the movers for it. And now you're going to unpack it, spend time, and you're going to be like, I don't even want this. So the decluttering is so, so, so important. So that's why I really love when we're working with the client from the beginning to the end, because if we get there at the end and we're unpacking, now we're unpacking and we're decluttering as we unpack. So it really slows down the process. Whereas if we had been working with you already, we know everything in those boxes are good to go. So it just kind of, it makes the flow much better in the moving process. And as I said, it's moving is very stressful regardless of how old you are. So we really take the stress out of it and we make it as seamless as possible. Amanda, as you said, like having someone like this, it's not, I remember when I told my mother, I'm going to become a professional organizer. I was a lawyer. She goes, what is that? What did they do? And finally, after like 2 years, she goes, okay, I get it. I get it.
You're needed. No, it's so true. And I think that I love your story so much, because I mean, I know you personally and I know your kids and I know your family, and I feel like you're such a successful person. Obviously, you have these degrees, which are so amazing. But then you totally took a left turn and you were like, this isn't what I want to do, and I'm going to build a business. So getting on the trajectory of your business, what did it look like to make that move? Because a lot of our listeners are in this aspect of life where they're like, I'm not really fulfilled. How do I make a jump? Like, what would you say to kind of encourage people to go there?
Yeah, I would say I know how they're feeling. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I've been working since I was 16, always had a paycheck, had that biweekly paycheck. And now you just don't know what's going to happen, So what I did was I was working full time. And I started my business. I had one client, and it was ironic. That client actually, I found she had posted on Facebook looking, she was actually talking about her cleaner and saying, I have a great cleaner. And I was looking for a cleaner. And I said, oh, I'd love her name. Well, she was an entrepreneur. So she looked me up on Facebook and she saw I own my own business. I had just put it up. I have, so new to business, don't have a business degree or anything. And I put it up. So she messaged me, oh, this is my cleaner. Would you like to come over for a cup of coffee and talk about your business? And I'm like, oh my God, this is happening, So I can say, 3.5 years later, I'm so happy with the change that I made. I can say that I'm a happier person. I like to get up in the morning and actually go to my job. And honestly, I don't even consider it a job. It's something that I love doing. And if it's something you love doing, it's not considered a job. So I would say to listeners out there who are saying, oh, I got to get up and I don't really enjoy what I'm doing. Start doing your due diligence. Really, find what your real passion is. I had like a whole list, and this is what I came to, that it was professional organizing. But I say that you only live once. This was my second career change, and I was I'm just really, really happy with where I am today. So sometimes you just kind of have to take that leap of faith and see where it takes you. For me, I was lucky. I have a lot of friends who've done the same thing, and they've excelled as well. So I would say, see what's out there, do your due diligence first, and really decide on what is that passion of yours.
Yeah. What did that due diligence look like for you? Like, obviously exploring what your interests and passions are, but then when you decided on organizing, did you like do research or reach out to any other local businesses? Like, what did that process look like?
Yeah, so for me, I actually found an organization that was all professional organizers. And there was actually a clip on a Sunday morning show my husband was watching. He watches it every Sunday, makes a big breakfast. And he's like, Rachel, you have to come in here. And it was all organizers, and they were having their quarterly meeting the next night. My husband said, you have to go. You have to go. You have to go
That's
check
fate.
it out. It was in Waltham, Massachusetts. And I went, and I say the rest was history, because I went and I met like-minded people. So I would say, if you have found, you think you found maybe what you're interested in, go meet with one of them. And business owners are very much majority are very friendly and want to talk about their story and want to help. So just reach out to somebody local, or if there's a local organization within that type of position you want to get yourself into, reach out to them and say, can I come and can I visit? Because that visit that day, if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you too, because it really, again, I was with like-minded people, and I really found what I really should be doing in life.
Oh,
I love
that's
that
so
idea.
amazing.
I've heard before, and this is just reminding me, and I feel like it's always stuck with me, is that whoever you surround yourself with is the bar in who you are. And so you always want to
Mm-hmm.
surround yourself with people that are like higher than you on traditional terms of like business success or open-mindedness or something like that. And
Yeah,
I
like you
think
don't
that
want to be the smartest person in the room, kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah. And I feel like that's so important of what you're saying. Like, just go out and do it. Go to the event, learn from people. You don't, it's like, okay that you're not, it's actually great that you're not like the smartest or the most experienced person in the room, because you're just elevating yourself to where they are.
Yeah. And that can feel intimidating, I feel like. And I feel like our society is very like, especially with women, like pitting women against each other and very like competition. So I feel like walking into a room like that could have felt very like, well, look how many there already are. Like, it's too much of a saturated market. Like, there's no room for me.
Mhm.
But really, it's like, this is proof that like this is a need and it works. Like, it is possible for them. So why is it not possible for me to do it?
I think the word that I thought of there was empowering.
Mm.
It really empowered me. And, I had never owned my own business. It was scary. What does that mean? There's so much to it. But I thought, you know what? I can do this. After going, I remember driving back on 128, calling my husband saying, I can. It's going to take time,
Hmm.
but I'm ready. I'm ready. And I actually shadowed some organizers. And the one thing I learned from shadowing a couple of them was that, unfortunately, the ones that I did, one of the ones I did shadow was very judgmental with her clients. And I remember saying to myself, that's not something that I want.
Mm.
And then I actually from that meeting I went to, there was a woman who basically became my mentor. And I really wanted to be like her. And when I put up a post around the holidays saying how many clients we had, like about 650. And all she commented in the notes was, I remember when.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
That was all she had to say.
you're like, thank you so much. I also remember and look at all this growth.
Yeah, yeah. So and that again, Caitlin, it's who you surround yourself with
Mhm.
too. I surrounded myself with some wonderful people along the way. And here I be today again, as happy as can be. And I know a lot of friends and people that I meet that aren't as happy, and I always say to them, you really have to find that passion. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's an easy thing, but if you just sit down and just take a little time, if you're not happy where you're at, you'll find your way eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, I'm going to end unless Mandy has questions. Mandy, do you have any questions?
No,
I'm
I
gonna do
think this
rapid
was
fire.
such a lovely conversation.
Sweet. So I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, but as Mandy always says, you don't have to answer them super quick. It's just meant to be fun and whatever pops into your mind. But as Amanda always does, she goes into paragraphs with these, so it is okay if you do as well.
Shots fired.
And there's just a few of them. Okay. So, do you want to play our game?
Yeah, I'll play the game. Sure. All right, let's do it.
All right. I think you already answered this one, but where do you buy most of your organization items?
So most of them are from the Container Store. And then sometimes I get stuff from Amazon. It really depends on the size I'm looking for, because sometimes at the Container Store, they don't necessarily have what I need. So then I go over to Amazon and I look there.
Okay, cool. Do you think we should organize our entire house in one day or room by room?
No, do not do it one day. That would be, and a lot of people think that, but do not do that. I would say room by room, and I would give yourself a cutoff and say, okay, today I'm going to do an hour, or start off with like a half hour. But, you know, adding more than that is going to set yourself up for just saying, forget about it. You know, I mean, maybe you'll call me, but it's like you're going to set yourself up for a disaster. So you just do it in little increments, and always do it at a time when you know you're free. Don't set your for failure. Don't set yourself up for failure that like, oh, I have to take the kids somewhere, but I'm going to block that time. Make sure you are available during that time.
Or don't do it when your toddler's playing with Legos, and then I'm like, everything is a mess because we're both
You're tripping over the Legos. And...
tripping over, right.
Okay. Favorite morning beverage to get you amped to organize?
Yes. So I actually love my protein shake.
Ooh.
I love that. So I'll put some protein in to get me ready to roll. I put some fruit in. So that really gets me gets me ready. And I always say, when you're going to organize, have a drink, have some music on too.
And music is key.
And get yourself pumped up and ready to go.
I love that. What is the messiest thing you own? If there's anything.
The messiest thing I own. Oh my goodness.
Like a purse, your car, your closet. You're like, nothing.
Nothing.
She is goals.
I mean, again, I have 2 children. My son just turned 14 a few days ago. I have an
probably their bedrooms.
I was gonna say Zachary's bedroom.
Me personally, my kids, we can talk about that another time. But for me, there's nothing.
I love it. You know, the honesty's there.
That's good.
So talking about that, do you think we should organize for our partner and our kids, or let them deal with it?
So I and my team, actually, we help organize children, and I love it, because again, organizing is not something you learn in school. So a lot of clients, what they'll do is they will learn the organizing, how to organize their stuff, and then they will help their husband and or children, and or we will come and we will help them. So sometimes we'll have a session with the husband, we'll have a session with the children. And they're really learning, and sometimes it's it's good if we're helping them, because maybe their mind is thinking a different way than the mother is or the wife is thinking of how they want things organized, because everybody organizes things differently. So that's why, again, the conversation. So if you're going to be organizing your family, definitely have those conversations with them about what they think is organized, because it might be different than what you think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. One thing that you won't ever get rid of, even though it doesn't fit the location or is kind of in the way and not organized, like your own sentimental thing.
Yeah, so it's actually my father passed away, my God, like 13 years ago. My daughter, I was pregnant with my daughter Jamie. She's named after him, Jay. It was nickname. And he had this like very bulky striped shirt, more like a sweatshirt, and it just doesn't fit bigger than me, and it was huge, right? And I still have that. And anywhere I put it, it's just so big it doesn't fit. I would never get rid of it. And sometimes I wear it, even though again,
Oh, that's
it's like a
sweet.
Snuggie. It's so big, but
Yeah.
I would never. I mean, if God forbid, my house was in flames, that would be the first thing I would grab.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love that. And it like normalizes that, like, okay, we don't have to
Yeah,
be
you have to hang on to
perfect.
some sentimental things.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always say, when we go into people's homes, we're not there to get rid of everything.
Mhm.
We're there to have those conversations to really decide what you really need and want, because
Yeah.
everything in your house you don't need and want. So let's have the
Mhm.
conversation and let's figure out, the best solutions for things, and if maybe we can donate or give it to some other family member, but I'm not there to get rid of everything, because I have a lot of keepsakes of my own. I
Yeah.
don't have Barbie dream homes, but I do have a lot of keepsakes.
Yeah. Because it's important to keep some, but it would be a different conversation if your whole personal closet was being totally disorganized by your father's whole wardrobe that you're hanging on to,
Right.
True.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So where can people find you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my company, is Make Peace with Organizing. So my website is www.makepeacewithorganizing.com. And you can also find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, and it's my company name. And we offer free consults, so it's either over Zoom or in person, depending where you live.
Excellent. And you work in Massachusetts and New Hampshire?
Yes, we work in Massachusetts. We don't work. We work everywhere in Mass except the Cape and Western Mass. And then in New Hampshire, we work from southern New Hampshire up through the Lakes region, like Winnipesaukee and Newfound Lake.
Nice.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to both of you.